Good evening and welcome to the July 9th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board meeting. I'll take approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Perez, will you please read the mission statement?
The mission of the Ames Community Schools is to ensure that all learners develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and personal esteem necessary to grow in and shape a changing society.
Thank you very much. And before I read the statement on the public forum, I'm just going to point out that yes, we do have a new face at the table tonight. We welcome Superintendent Reisner to Ames, even though she's been here a few weeks, but we welcome you to the board table. And I know some of the board members and Superintendent Reisner may have some comments later, but I wanted to acknowledge that at the beginning of the meeting. So welcome.
Thank you.
Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And we have one member of the public signed up for the public forum.
Which one's on?
That one will work.
I didn't plan to be here necessarily. I live here like part of the year. I'm Catherine Barbara Fromm. I've had 4 children in the Ames School District. I was the parent enemy number 1. The teachers liked me because I always defended the system and not just my own children or fellow school. I have a prodigious memory, and if you think I'm a problem here, you should see what I am in Escondido, California, which is where I was born. I'm reminding everybody of everything. We've been paying substitute teachers $100 a day since Ruth Hamilton was on the school board. This is disgusting, and it's the exploitation of women, graduate student wives, and all kinds of people, and you all know better than to do this. To pay $100 a day with all the changes that have come in terms of inflation, in terms of people getting an education. I don't know who recommended that you do this. I know there was a no vote, and I had a nice email from Gina Perez, who thought our pay was very low. But I don't know how you all sat here and passed that. It's your job as board members, not mine. You know, I've been through all the things that you do to make the district better, and I did them. You call other districts, you find out what they're paying, and you therefore make an adjustment, and you can find the money. And I suggest you do that right away. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go ahead and move on to consent items. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Beerbaum.
Sure. So the minutes from the meeting held July 18th, 2018?
You can just list it.
You don't need to make, okay.
No.
The personnel report, Exhibit C1, and the contract agreement, Exhibit C2, and the agreements are for ISU for use of the golf course 2018-19 school year for both boys and girls golf. In addition, the agreement with ISU for athletic trainers for Ames High School. And then the continuous open enrollment, Exhibit C3.
Thank you. It's been moved by Benkin, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. We'll go ahead and move on to action items, and the first item is the programming plans for the new high school.
Before we start discussing it, we should
Sorry.
probably
Thank you.
have a motion.
It feels awkward to not have discussion items, so thank you,
Yeah.
Board, for helping me on that. I will entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the programming report, authorize OPN architects to proceed with the schematic design phase of the new high school project.
I second.
Moved by Deerdorf, seconded by Beerbaum. We will move into discussion.
Well, we're off. We're on our way. OPN's been working on programming. They've been doing a lot of the work kind of behind the scenes or something that's not showing. We aren't building quite yet. It's going to take about a year to be able to get the design. So it's quite a big project, $123 million, and so it's going to take some time to get the lines on the paper and get all the information pulled together. But OBM has completed their first stage of the design process, and that's programming. That's gathering a lot of information. And they're going to go ahead and give us a presentation on where we're at. And we've also been able to determine, or Story Construction has been able to develop a budget based on some of the parameters in the design. The budget's pretty high level. It's based on square footages and the comparables with other types of projects. So it's not quite down in the details, but it does give us a chance to take a broad stroke view of what we're looking at and how the costs compare for the design and what we're looking at based on this program information. So as we gain speed, then drawings and more information is going to be able to come out and be available. So with that said, we have Roger Wern, the principal of OPN, Vicki Highland, and Kristen Hurt. So they're going to go ahead and give us a presentation on the program that we asked in for approval.
Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to be back again. We were here about a month or so ago and gave you a quick update of where we were in the overall programming efforts. Since we started this exercise in early April, we've covered just an amazing amount of ground district-wide with Jerry and the facility side, the faculty and staff, just everyone in the district. We've had several great meetings as we launched this overall programming effort. Tonight is where we bring the conclusion of programming to a close. And what that does is it cues us up to move now into schematic design. The program is basically the roadmap now in more of a narrative form that we can take and move it into a graphic plan as we start to develop floor plans and building mass and volume and understand how it sits on the site, what are the impacts to the existing conditions of the site, and also start to lay the groundwork for more and more definition of the design exercise, as well as dovetailing that with the cost exercise and bringing the budget together as we move through the project. So with that, I'll pass it over to Kristen and Vicki. They'll walk you through the work to date.
All right, so we always like to start with our schedule, where we're at. Today, we are, as Roger mentioned, we're concluding the programming phase. And we're kind of overlapping with some schematic design activities where we're taking the information we have and testing it to see how and where it's going to fit on the site. But that's a lot of information that we're pulling together kind of in the background right now. As we look ahead, we'll be working on schematic design through the end of August, and then we'll get to a budget cost estimate at that time as well. So again, we're still on track with where we started and when we met last month with you. So looking ahead in the next month, we are starting to add lots of layers of detail with meetings again, and kind of circling back around with a lot of different folks. This week we'll meet and talk in more depth about technology needs and MEP needs, and begin to get some more information on those two aspects. We're going to spend a little bit of time doing a design work session with some members of the staff, and start to talk about the big blocks and how we vision this large complex to come together. In a couple of weeks, we're going to go tour Johnston High School, which is one of the most recent completed high schools in the area, just to kind of get a feel for what they did, kind of see what some takeaways might be from that project. We'll meet with the City of Ames to talk through all of the constraints and things that we need to work through with them. And then in the end of July, early August, we'll spend some time circling back with all the faculty group meetings. And the worksheets in the back of the programming document are the result of the initial meetings that we had with all those faculty. Those have lists of all of the information we've collected to date about equipment and other types of needs like projection and classroom needs, things like that. So we're going to be circling back with them because there's, after you have that initial meeting, I'm sure there'll be a lot of other thoughts and ideas that we need to take into account as we move forward with the schematic design. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll complete the package of drawings for schematic design in the end of August, and that will be turned over to Story Construction for a cost estimate, and we'll circle back with you and give you an update on all of that in September.
So, if you recall, you guys were our first kickoff group as a stakeholder group that we met with, and we did some exercises with, and we gathered information from you. And from that time, then we went on to meet with a lot of staff departments. And since the last time we met with you, we had some student engagement sessions that were a lot of fun. They were the last week of school, and it was an open house, and we invited kids to just stop by, and we had some great conversations with them. It was really fun to see their enthusiasm. We also, Spence gave us some time on one of the last days of the staff there once the students were gone, and we did some exercises with them, and then we kind of spread out around the room and got more input individually, gave them opportunities to come and dialogue with each of us one-on-one and just voice questions, voice excitement, concerns, anything that they wanted to talk about. We were there and we hung out, and that was a really great session as well. And then we came back on June 4th, like Roger and Kristen met, and we gave you a little update of where we were. We had more community engagement sessions. Those were a lot of fun. We had 3 of them, and we, again, did an open house. We had some exercises available, and we had some images for the public to react to. We had a lot of great one-on-one dialogues and a lot of interest groups, kind of a great cross-section, young to old families, people that were involved in the community in performing arts and in athletics, and just a lot of great conversations. And last time we were with you, we had our first kind of gleam at this after our initial meetings in terms of what we were hearing from people. So we've updated this after we met with the students in the community, and we again took the information that they gave us, and then we compiled it, and we put it all into a formula to come out with what we were hearing from all the different stakeholder groups. So when we took all of those together, here's what we came back with. This was what we were hearing overwhelmingly from each of the stakeholder groups. These were the things that were really, really important. So we took these words and we created our vision statements for the project. And you have these in the programming document that we have provided to you. And I won't read each one to you, but we took those the importance of those ideas, and we formed our belief statements so that they will help drive and inform our design as we go through the project, and we make sure that we keep those in forefront. We want a safe place for students to be. We want it to be welcoming and offer collaboration opportunities. We want it to take advantage of natural light wherever we can, and we want it to be sustainable. We want it to be flexible and planning for the future. We want it to be able to serve curricular development pedagogies that we use today, as well as what could it be in the future. We want it to be comfortable and welcoming. We want kids to want to be there. We want the community to want to be there. So when we took the programming document, we started to assemble all of the individual spaces. With all our meetings, we started to dissect numbers of classrooms, sizes of classrooms, numbers of labs. What does it take to have career tech education spaces? What does it take for physical education? What does it take for competitive athletics? What does it take for fine arts? And we started to develop this. I think, do you want to talk a little bit more about this space summary?
Yeah, sure. So, it's organized based off of the department group or groups that we've met with. We're at 406,000 square feet, which is about 40,000 square feet larger than what that learning landscape idea had from the previous study. However, we're very early on. Right now, we're just using some rules of thumb. We haven't started to lay this out. We haven't started to really figure out where we're going to find efficiencies in the way that we're laying it out. So we really feel like this is a good it's a good test right now, but we know it's going to improve, and we're going to get to the right number here in the next couple of months.
One of the exercises we did when we did this, because you had spent the time and money and energy to have that pre-study before your bond vote, that was valuable information. So it was important for us to look back at that, kind of compare to where we were. We found things in doing our deeper dive when we first talked to you, and we've talked to you ever since. We have to take that deeper dive to really get into these spaces. And so what we found is there were some things that we didn't see in that original study because they were looking at a higher level. They needed to get you a number that you could take to the public and say this will work, and it was a good first study. But in looking deeper, we were finding things that we needed to add programmatically. And so what we did here is we feel that this will serve your program. We feel that this square footage will go down as we start to look at economies and as we start to consolidate some of these common spaces. That number will start to be fine-tuned. But for right now, we feel like we're sitting in a pretty good spot.
So our next step, before we really spend time figuring out what the building's going to look like, how it's going to lay out, we have to take a look at the site and what the site offers us. So we wanted to just give you a quick snapshot of our thoughts on the site. We haven't really pulled this into a conclusion yet, with the building layout, but these are the things that we're looking at that influence us as we start to lay out the programmatic pieces. We know there's some key roadways and access patterns here, traffic circulation. You've got some bus stops for SciRide. You've got some busier streets here with Ridgewood and 20th on the east and the north. So we're definitely going to need to take into consideration how you access the building, how do you easily get to parking and parent drop-off, bus drop-off, those kinds of things. So we'll pay a lot of attention to that as we begin to work through a design concept. Another really critical thing is thinking about when we talk about sustainability, we want to do everything we can with the way that we're siting the building to take advantage of the sun and the sun patterns, making sure that we're not creating a lot of glare by the way that we're positioning the building. So we look at how the sun moves around this site and where we might want to have windows and where we maybe don't want to have windows. We also consider wind in Iowa. The northwest wind in the winter is pretty crazy, so we want to make sure we consider that as we think about entries into the building and sheltering folks from the wind in the wintertime. Another area of consideration is topography, and this site has quite a bit of topography. The stadium is about 20 feet lower than the practice field that's near the Ridgewood. So there is a potential for a lower level in this building. You think of it as kind of a walkout basement, so to speak. So that's an opportunity we think that we can really utilize. And then thinking about other amenities that the site offers, that includes green space and other items. We know the stadium is an amenity that will stay. We'll have to recreate a sense of entry to the stadium as we work through the new design. The prairie, of course, is an amazing amenity to have on the site, and it offers a great opportunity for a view. And then you'll have the practice fields eventually located where the existing school is. And then thinking about views, there are views into the site. What does it look like for people coming up to the school? And then there's views from the school. So where are our best opportunities for the folks inside the school to have a nice view out? So views in would be from the corners from the road and the intersections. And then views out would be towards the prairie, over the stadium. Those would be some nice points for view.
And when we reflect back, when we talked to you last time and a couple of you went on our benchmarking trips, this is a really important thing. We talked a ton when we were out looking at schools about curb appeal and making it, a jewel of your community and something that people are going to approach and say, wow, that's our high school for Ames. And while you're in the building, what can I see and what can I capitalize on? So this is really critical, I think.
So I'm Dean McCormick with Story Construction. So we took the program data that OPM has put together and looked at comparative costs to other similar high schools in Iowa. We looked at to make sure, one, the areas seemed in line, the program areas that Kristen talked about by department, and they do. And we looked at the cost data associated with those other high schools and applied them to the Ames High program. I want to emphasize this is a very high level look at the budget. We didn't count bricks or square foot of concrete or area of roof. This is looking strictly at square foot costs and how it compares to other similar projects around Iowa. So looking at construction costs is the top category and the largest category. Those construction costs would include the cost of contracting for the construction, as well as hazardous material abatement, demolition of the existing high school, the site work is all included in there, and the cost of construction management contract for Story would be in that category. Professional fees and services would include the cost for the architect, their consultants. That also includes things like geotechnical services, construction testing during construction, surveying costs, commissioning of systems, etc. So that would include all the professional services that are part of this project. FF&E and movable equipment would include furnishing for the project, as well as audiovisual equipment and the costs of equipping the high school. So as we move down this, Jerry's going to have to buy waste baskets and ladders and all kinds of stuff like that, toilet paper. That initial supply of that stuff would be part of this.
Most of it's furniture, right?
Most of that, by far, most of it's furniture and AV. I just want to make the point, we don't want to forget, because those costs can be significant. You don't want to be surprised by that at move-in time.
I like the way Brad talks about it. You take the building upside down and shake it. FF&E is what falls out. No people are in it yet, though.
Safety. We've put some money in for moving. There'll be a moving operation that'll need to occur as we get ready to move into this. And then we've included some contingency. We have included construction contingency up in the construction costs. This contingency would be for on non-contract sort of item, non-construction items. So what's the bottom line? When we look at this from a total budget standpoint, we're slightly over. We've broken this down into pool and high school. High school is just barely over at this point. Pool is a little bit more over. I probably should go back. For the pool, we've talked an awful lot about Cedar Rapids Linn-Mar pool. The basis of this pool budget is building the Cedar Rapids Linn-Mar pool in Ames now, or in 2019. We haven't done any more detailed analysis other than that. So this is the cost from Linn-Mar escalated to 2019 and put in Ames. So the pool is over a little bit more. There's some work to be done on that, and how do we pull that back into budget. So.
How about questions for?
I was going to say, is it time for questions?
It is time for questions.
Can we go back?
For any of them.
So I don't know if I have my right glasses on. Is that $19 million for a swimming pool? $19,798,187?
Yes.
For the swimming pool?
Yes.
Just for the swimming pool?
Yes.
Who authorized that? Have we talked about this? Is that what we talked about?
Well, we haven't authorized 19.7. These are projected costs based on nothing. So
What they think we want.
19.7 has
Right.
not been
But we don't want
authorized.
a $20 million swimming pool, right?
these numbers, why don't you be more detailed about how you estimated that cost?
On the pool,
Correct.
so we obtained the final swimming pool costs on the Cedar Rapids Linn-Mar pool from Cedar Rapids Linn-Mar. Then we applied inflation from the time Linn-Mar was built to today. And that's the basis of that cost. So this is just projected cost based on that program.
Okay.
So,
And there's still ways to massage that to a certain degree. It's taking a moment in time to truly compare apples to apples, Linn-Mar to what Ames could have. And how do you move through that exercise?
Thank you.
so I probably should have started, we kind of skipped the budget. The budget that we've been asked to work on is $18 million for the pool, $105 million for the high school, or a total budget of $123 million. So that's the target. This is simply where the cost would project today on that.
So I guess we'll talk about the pool later. So I do want to ask OPN just a few questions. So I thank you for all the work you did. Is this information going to be available to the public?
It's already, the programming booklet is already posted on as an item under our meeting, but Eric and I were actually just talking before the meeting of that we will get it posted and making sure that we are going to communicate information. He's going to develop a plan for us to communicate the information out to the public.
So you think they'll see this?
It is all a part of the programming. If you look at it is for the public, it is Exhibit A1 on our board agenda underneath the district, underneath the board documents, but we are also going to make sure that this document they put together is on our website.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess for the other, just two more items, I want to thank you for including the lactation rooms. I see that there's 2 planned. That's amazing. Thank you for doing that. I know we also talked about gender-neutral bathrooms. That was one of the things that I put on. In just the quick overview, I saw that there's one laid out in the athletic program section. I guess it's a large one. It's about 3,000 square feet. I'm confused about that. Could you just help me understand a little better?
So we will have gender-neutral bathrooms. We don't have any of the restrooms programmed into the actual program space.
Right, I didn't
Those are
see
part of
that.
that kind of net to gross, which is where we start to take mechanical spaces and custodial spaces and those kinds of things, and those are a part of the factor that we take, it's 1.4. The gender-neutral, it's actually a locker room in the athletics area, and that's intended to be able to be used depending on the way that the athletics program needs. It might be like a volleyball locker room in the volleyball season, and then it might be a boys track locker room during track season. So it's intended to be a little bit more flexible to be able to be used based off of what gender needs a locker room at that time or that season.
I didn't see any gender-neutral bathrooms in the $20 million swimming pool. Are we going to put some in there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the things that might be helpful, I think, to have a discussion as the board, if you go back to the square foot slide earlier in the presentation, just as a discussion for the board, the assumption was we wanted to build this high school for 1,600 student population. So right now, I don't know the exact figure, if it's 1,450 or somewhere around in there. We want to have capacity to make it, to expand. But I think the important part is understanding that the core spaces, the common areas need to potentially be big enough to support a larger population. So you can see 1,800 students was the benchmark we've asked OPM to work off of. I just want to make sure that the board had an opportunity to highlight that for you guys, understand, okay, this is what we're going for total square footage. Is that reasonable? Because that greatly impacts the total cost. I feel it is, but it was just my opinion I pushed out there.
I think it's perfectly reasonable. I noticed that, especially for like the commons area, there's been some talk back and forth about whether or not to close campus over lunchtime. So I think we need to have something like that if we're ever going to entertain that idea.
Yeah, I have that as one of my questions, and I don't know if it's reasonable or not, because right now it's 1,500, so I think we want to grow, right? That's what I mean, we want more students. So I don't know if there would be room for expansion, because I know some of the elementary schools were built for adding, and I know the adding, it's kind of tricky because we've added so much to the existing high school. But I don't know if that's a possibility. Has that been planned?
Yeah, so the academic spaces are designed for 1,600 students, and as we lay out the building, we'll look for opportunities to expand the academic areas. So the classroom blocks will be able to kind of be expanded onto the site. The 1,800 is supported by the cafeteria, the media center. Those are sized just a little bit larger than you might need for a population of 1,600 kids in order to make sure we don't need to expand those core spaces. So we'd expand, outward with an academic wing.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that question, Luke, because I think that is something we really need to be mindful of how, I mean, it happened with the elementary schools, right? No, we didn't anticipate that it would happen, and it happened quite soon.
I'm going to start way from the beginning here. Traditionally, before an action item comes before us, there's a community input comment opportunity. For this action item, that did not happen. But I rest assured that there's going to be a lot of opportunities going forward for you're coming back to us, giving us updates, and for the community to give us input. So it's already been addressed, but you're going to be taking with the information, this document that you're showing us right now will be on the website, and the community will have opportunities to look at it and provide through the superintendent's office information back to you regarding their thoughts. Because this is really your first, kind of ideas from your first meetings with all the different stakeholder groups. You've done a great job because, not only did we start off as the first group, but I also attended some of the other groups and the community events, and it was right on the money, some of the things that they were coming, that I saw that you expressed in this report. So I really encourage the community, since we didn't have a community opportunity, we're going to be taking action tonight to please go to the website, please look at this information and get us feedback about some of the broad ideas. Because as OPN goes forward in getting more details, now is the time to give us that feedback on various things. So that's the opportunity there. Also, these cost estimates really, and you brought it up already, very, very general, primarily based on square footage, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think you've got to look at these costs as a measurement of where the program is at
Right.
this point in time.
Yeah, not on materials, not on, a lot of this, there was some material or details in this document, but you haven't crunched real numbers, and
We
of
have not
course,
crunched
we're not even going to be,
There was no takeoff done on this.
not at all, not at all. This is really, really ballparking it, let's call it. Okay? Okay, great. When will be the next deliverable similar to this from Jerry, from OPN and,
That'll be at the end of schematic design, at the
Okay.
next design phase. And so that should be in September when we'll have the budget report.
Okay, and at that point, with those schematics, that's when some of those harder cost estimates will actually be a little more fleshed out.
It'll start to become more detailed at that point.
Right.
A little more detailed area. We probably still aren't looking at
No.
parts and order estimates.
No, we won't get to that until like December, I'm going to guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then one thing, looking through the list of rooms, because that's what a lot of people will go through and say, okay, we got rooms for this, rooms for that, room for this. I did not see one for the Ames Education Foundation offices. I know that is something that was brought up at the community. Was that in there? Did I just miss it? Or?
different title.
Yeah, it's called the District Support Office, I believe.
Oh, District Support Office.
Yeah,
Okay.
the nomenclature is a little different.
I think there's 3 spaces in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't see it. I didn't recognize it as that, so, okay, Thanks.
A similar question, on the space needs slides where it does list, general rooms, have you talked to the staff yet about those numbers, or is that one of the next things that happens?
That's really in the next step. We've taken and gathered sort of the list is made up of what we heard from them and what we could verify based off of what you have and what comparable schools are providing. And then we go back to what, some of our rules of thumb are for classroom sizes and things like that based off of what we heard that the group needs. And that's our next step, is to circle back with everybody, gather more information about equipment to confirm that everything's going to fit in these spaces and make sure we're hitting the sweet spot. Some spaces might get a little bit bigger and some might get a little smaller, and overall we hope to tighten up the overall square footage of the building.
In terms of counts, Alan, what you were asking too is we actually looked at program of studies right now. We looked we got overall master schedules for the high school, so we could look at what they're doing now and then try to project out based on the population we're going to serve, so that we could try to kind of quantify what numbers of those spaces, and then we do that, and then we do a gut check with the administration to say, yep, that sounds about right.
Okay. Well, like, for example, like the gender neutral locker room sounds like a great idea. That I think there were some notes from the staff that had said that might be needed. And I know they had talked about like a field house concept, or how do they share gymnasiums. So yeah, I'm happy to know you're going to be talking with them more and seeing what they think on these, because they'll know much better than I would. So
I have a couple of questions. I like the green energy was mentioned. You mentioned geothermal, solar, and wind power. I know it's early, but do you have any idea of what percentage of the school's energy will be provided by renewable energy? I know it's early.
That depends.
Of what?
So we'll need to be able to just analyze that and see what the opportunities are. I think with the solar or the wind, we'll look at opportunities for being able to contract that service out. In the private sector, they can take advantage of the tax refund on the purchase. We can't. So from a capital expenditure perspective, they can buy it less expensively than we can. They can sell the energy to us at a lower rate than what we're buying currently from the electricity provider. Mm-hmm. And then that way, that's a method of being able to make it work. So we're going to be able to study those options and see how we can make that happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I just also want to make it so we keep it in mind, right? The next question I had is about biking. I didn't see much consideration for that. I just saw it. There was a trail, bike trail. Is there plans for more that safe access walking? Can you talk to me about that?
Well, we haven't spent a lot of time on that, although we know it's a critical form of transportation for a lot of kids. So I think it's important for us to connect it to the bike path system that's in the city of Ames already. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely an important consideration. Also providing plenty of space for bike parking will be important, and where that's located.
Thank you. And I think the next one was, I love the idea of the science discovery area and take advantage of that. So thank you. Thank you for your work.
following up on the biking, one thing I would suggest is, having lived in that neighborhood in the past, getting cars in and out at certain times of day is really horrible right now. So in the discussion you have with the city of Ames, I would be really interested to know if they might, through their planning department, have some ideas of things you could do at the school that they could maybe do also to help the traffic patterns, because Ridgewood is horrible, 20th, that whole area is horrible. So anything we could do to leverage some improvements would be great.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. About a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and Rodney, you can remember this conversation. We did begin a conversation not only with the city, but with Iowa State. And I think it might be a good time, at least for future discussions related to what we're building, that we talk about 19th Street And, I'm sorry, yeah, 16th Street. 16th Street being extended to Stain. We did an initial study and, there weren't a lot of feelers, but, it might not be something that would happen in the near future, but we're talking about a high school that we were building for 50 years. So that when you were showing the site views, that I think should be taken into consideration when you're considering those site views. Because someday, when it's feasible or appropriate, or we work things out with the city and ISU, because there's differing sharing of different properties there and such. But the initial interest is there. And I think it's something that should be pursued because it could really give us not only what you were bringing up about the traffic congestions, not only in the neighborhoods, but also what many parents have always had a concern about was their younger children at Fellows. And anything that we can reduce traffic on that particular street, in relation to high school students getting to school or leaving school, would be greatly appreciated. So, like you said, you're going to be chatting with the city. Definitely bring up 16th Street, and at least to make sure that it's in the back of everybody's heads.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands that the point that we are at, and I appreciate all of the questions and the discussions and certainly all of the additional information you're providing. Our vote tonight is to accept the programming phase comes to a completion and that we're moving into schematic design. So we're not approving that our high school is going to be 406,469 square feet, and we're not approving that it's going to cost whatever it says on the next slide, that final number. What we are approving is we're accepting those the feet that have all of the themes that have come out of it and the vision statements that they have come up with that are guiding. I think, Roger, you said it's the roadmap for our next plan. So that is what we are accepting. We had them present, I think it was the 4th of June, you came and did your initial presentation to give us an idea of where we are. That's why we've brought it back as an action item to say, this is where they have started, welcome some input there. This is where we are now with programming, and now we need to go ahead and accept this so that we can say, move ahead with the schematic design process. So I want the public to understand that there's going to continue to be more opportunities for public input on this. Where we are right now is we're just taking the initial plan they provided the 4th of June and saying, yes, you are moving in the right direction and you're getting a better understanding of our school district, and we want you to keep moving based on all of the information you've collected through all these meetings. So just wanted to make sure we were all clear on what our motion was tonight. So
And I do want to appreciate all the work you put together, especially the cost estimate too. The one thing I think would be helpful, and I've voiced this to Jenny so far, is to have the board come to a discussion maybe in August about what is our pain threshold for supporting this project. So when we went to the referendum, we said, okay, it's a $123 million project. 105 was from the referendum, 18 from the pool. What we need to talk about next as a board is, okay, in the event we do have cost overruns, or if it does come back to Dean's estimate of $125 million, is that what we want to spend? And so I think it'd be wise to have Jenny and her staff go through of, okay, what do we have for upcoming projects? What would be reasonable for us to reserve for extreme measures if a boiler breaks down or roof needs replaced? What do we need to hold back in our pockets, as well as the IT refresh and other things that may be coming up? So just having an understanding of, okay, us as a board, what do we agree to is our budget for this project, which will then be more fleshed out from as this work moves forward. So that would be my hope.
And so Luke will work on that and be ready for that discussion in August.
Perfect.
thank you. Go ahead.
So I do want to just go back real quick because I guess I know what we're voting on, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to get information out and understanding so that we're all clear. Because sometimes I feel like we have these discussions, and then I come back and I'm like, I didn't say $20 million, but that's anyway. So I see that you're thinking about a 2 to 3 story building. Can you just speak about the difference between that? Like, is 2 stories just always cheaper? Is 3, what makes 3 better?
Some of the drivers behind that is the impact on footprint. You know, you think of an academic wing, classrooms. If you put the classrooms on 2 stories and you need, so you need 24 classrooms, so you go 12 and 12, your footprint will be a little bit larger. If you go 3 stories, you go 3 stories of 8 classrooms. The other things that we take into consideration is the cost because of the footprint, but even the impact on energy usage. What does it do to the overall surface area of the building for heating and cooling as the sun hits it and warms it up or the northwest wind hits it? Circulation is another one, is how are you moving this many people through a facility on 2 levels or 3? What starts to make the most sense, and the impact on that footprint? You know, we're at the tip of the iceberg on this, and it's such an exciting time because we've got this big box of puzzle pieces now in front of us, this program. And any project of scale, whether it's a building project or a business decision that you have to make, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions that come together as you move through this exercise. And we're about to dump all those pieces out on the table now and start to give this thing some shape and some form and some character. The 3-story element, that will definitely be a decision that we'll have to make collectively. What does it do if it sits next to Ridgeway, or what does it do if you have views to the prairie to the west? So there's a lot of factors that now start to go into that 3rd dimension, in 2 and 3 stories of a classroom wing start to have a big impact as you line that up next to a big tall gymnasium, an auditorium, even a pool structure will be tall. So the character of this building and how it takes on that 3-dimensional shape will be an underlying driver of how we move through the project overall, and what it does to the neighborhood and the image of the district.
Relatedly, I don't know, I didn't hear an answer to Director Colton's question, maybe she did. Is the building being designed to be, this is the boundary of it, or is it being designed to be added on to at a future date?
Added on to at a future date.
Okay.
Kristen touched on it. The big components that aren't easy to change down the road would be the cafeteria, the commons, and the media center. So we've taken that into consideration now with the 1,600 students, plus if you grow to 1,800. So that's why the program is a little bit inflated just through those areas, because we want to accommodate that right out of the chute on opening day. Because you're in a position where I think when you build it, they will come kind of a story. This facility will draw a lot of attention. The academic wings, like any school facility for academics, you design it so you can add on to the end or to the side and try to minimize your costs going forward, but maximize your opportunity to expand those classroom areas, if that's the case.
So for example, when you talk about 3-story, and then I remember you made reference to the topography of the site, that might actually end up being, you know, the lower portion of a 3-story structure would be the walkout portion.
Perfect
And then
example.
the rest of the 2 stories would be actually the 1st and 2nd floor. So that other one would be maybe the basement.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, the walkout basement of a house is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's tall and maybe 2 stories on the back or 3 stories on the back, but it's shorter on the front side.
Right, so it would look like a 2-story, but
it's
you know, from
pretty deep.
from the football field, it'd say,
Right.
oh wow, that's 3 stories. Yeah, as an example. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, it has been moved by Deerdorf, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you very much for the information. Item 8, change order on tennis courts.
I move the board approve change order number 1 for the addition of 4 tennis court lights and equipment in the amount of $91,792.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Beerbaum. Discussion?
Are we going to get an explanation, or is he going to explain? Okay.
Yep, just shoot. Jerry, yes. Don't
I think
leave.
we've,
Give us an explanation, please.
This is for adding the lights to the center courts. I think we've had some discussion about this before and the need or the benefit for being able to provide these lights. So this is a change order that's reflecting of going ahead and adding the light poles and the equipment to be able to control these lights.
So this is just the way in which you can do the thing we voted on last meeting. Is that right?
This is approving the formal, authorizing the president to sign the change order. I
Okay.
mean, we've already approved it, so I've been able to release the work to go ahead to proceed, but this is the formal approval in order to be able to make that legal document.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Rosser, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Did he say no? There's another one underneath it.
No, he
I
only did
move
the
the
first
board
one.
Okay, that's-
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
move the board approve change order number 2 to import sand aggregate for concrete material for the tennis court construction in the amount of $23,093.
Second?
Moved by Perez, seconded by Deerdorf. Discussion.
Okay, Jerry. This one's a surprise. Tell us the story, what's going on? Because this is a lot of money. It wasn't part of the original budget, and we were concerned about the lights. Now, we're talking about an additional $24,000. What's happened?
So the local aggregates have impurities in them that cause the concrete surface to pop out. So sand is the primary culprit here. It has chert is one of the components and some coal and slag. So what happens is that causes it to pop out. Designers elected to not include imported sand in the original bid because of budget concerns. After they did some more research and they found out they got more concerned about that. So by importing the sand, we can reduce the probability of these pop-outs by about down to 20%. So it's likely to occur, and it's going to occur on the tennis courts. I think it's going to be a good idea to go ahead and do this. What will happen is the pop-outs will occur. This isn't going to prevent, there's no guarantee that we'll have 0 pop-outs, but we should have 1 instead of 5. We're looking at a pretty big area, so it's going to be somewhat significant. It'll be on the tennis courts, on the playing surface. So these pop-outs will occur, and I'm going to get my staff trained to be able to address that, so they'll be able to repair that and recoat it. They're going to occur most likely within the first 3 to 5 years. So by the time we go through and do our first recoating, then we should have a reliable, consistent surface that we can play on for the next, the duration of the courts.
So where is this imported from?
It's coming up from eastern Iowa.
Okay. So the local sand pits don't meet the standards that our contractors looking
Yep,
for?
they have these impurities in them that we're finding.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So
Okay.
it's unfortunate, and then we really challenged the team, the design team, to be able to say, to give us some feedback and some information on this. How can they occur? How many can you measure? And I wasn't able to get that, but they do have previous projects with local materials that you'll be able to see. I mean, as I'm looking around, walking around concrete sidewalks and parking lots, I'm looking and observing that and seeing where these pop-outs are. And I think there's 2 pretty big ones that are, not really big ones, about nickel size outside the front door here. So it is a real thing, and I think it is going to have an impact on it. So I think this will reduce the amount that we're going to have to repair on an annual basis for these first 5 years.
I'm sorry, what's a pop-out?
What happens is this impure material, it'll expand and it'll pretty much kind of pop out, and it creates a little cavern in the concrete. So you'll have, it's a pop out.
A little.
There was a picture, like a bubble.
Yeah.
A little.
Did you see the
Yep.
picture? Yeah.
Thank you. So you're trying to prevent this on the tennis courts that we're going to build?
Right.
right? And because it's something that's in the ground.
No, it's in the concrete, so.
It's in the
It's
concrete.
part of the, yeah, it's part of the sand, so concrete is made up of cement and aggregate and water. And the aggregate has different sizes, varying sizes, so it's gonna have larger pieces, and then it's graded down to have smaller pieces or sand. And so it's the sand that we're excavating out of the pits locally here that has this material, and it just was deposited when the sand was formed over the glacier period.
So was this a problem with the tennis courts that are existing now? Have you
The
been?
existing tennis courts are asphalt,
Oh, are they?
yes.
Oh, all right.
So I share my frustration with Jerry a little bit that this wasn't included in the original plans. But again, this is 1.5% of the full budget. So from a change order perspective, fairly reasonable, but I share Lewis's frustration that it's, $23,000. So I'm supportive of it because it'll give us a better product long-term. It just, in my opinion, should have been included in the original.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it too. It's frustrating that it wasn't part of the original, bid, and but we made the conscious decision that going with the concrete service gets us, if you recall the conversation, gives us a lot more longevity, but not only that, less maintenance over a longer period of time, whereas if we went with an asphalt service, we would actually end up spending more money in maintenance over the course of 20, 30, 40 years. So from an investment standpoint at this, concrete's the way to go. So if you recall the conversation we had about, help me Jerry, when did we talk about that? It was about 2 months ago, maybe 3? Okay. But that's when we decided to go with the concrete instead of the asphalt because of the stability of it long term.
Would repairs with local sand aggregate cost significantly more than this then down the road? If we had to do a whole bunch more repairs from not importing the sand?
Say that again, Dave.
Okay, if we don't import the sand, right, we get more repairs that have to be done because of the pop-outs.
Yes.
Would the cost of those repairs be significantly more than this to import the sand?
We've got potentially, so I'm wanting to minimize that cost by having my staff trained on how to do these repairs. I think we can do it. It seems pretty straightforward, but I want to go ahead and do the training just to be able to make sure that we aren't missing anything. I got a price from the contractor from Colorado that's going to do the post-tension concrete, and he wanted $4,500 per trip. A lot of that's in flight time, so it's going to take a lot more to get him here with the equipment to do the repairs than it is to actually do the repairs. So there are other local contractors in the area that could do that. The cost would be somewhat less than that, but it's still going to be more than what we can do. And I think we can stay on it. We'll be able to monitor it and then make the repairs on a timely basis rather than having to bring these experts in to be able to do that. So I still think with that said, it's hard to be able to kind of predict how many pop-outs we're going to have and then how much the repair would be. But I think not just the amount of the cost to do the repairs, but just the benefit in not having the surface compromised in a lot of different spots versus a few different spots. So it's not, I wanted to be able to tell Director Deerdorf, here's a cost-benefit analysis, but I wasn't able to kind of do that. It's more of a valuable, an intangible value as far as not having a lot of those pop-outs on the surface.
Does that affect the longevity of the concrete as well then?
Nope. No, the concrete's going to be, it's got a certain thickness, and this is just a superficial, it's a surface type of problem.
Jerry, you don't have a crystal ball, but are there any other change orders looming on the horizon with this project?
Yes, there are. We have progress meetings, and one of the agenda items is what's our exposure or potential changes. There's a couple changes that we had to the utilities that were required by the city of Ames. We're getting pricing on that, and then there's a storm sewer change. Other than that, my guess is we're under $10,000, and I'd hope we're about half of that.
Now, every once in a while, my memory does remember that we do get a change order that's a negative number. So, keep your eyes open for one of those, Jerry, in those meetings. That would be appreciated.
I had the opportunity to ask about that today during our progress meeting. And then I also do remind contractors on a regular basis, we do have a gift to the district form. So if they're willing to contribute anything, we can give them recognition in the school board. So I always make sure that they're aware of that.
Good job. Good
Hasn't
job.
panned out much, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion with Jerry on this second item under tennis courts? It's been moved by Perez, seconded by Deerdorf. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 9, open enrollment applications.
I move the board approve the open enrollment request for the 2018-19 school year as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Perez. Discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board.
I just wanted to say, welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here and for all of the things that you have planned. And you've been here already for over a week, and you're still excited to be here. So I'm really glad for that. Thank you.
I am, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a great first week. I'm very, very impressed with the amount of knowledge and that's in this office and then in brief meetings with our administrators. I'm so excited. So we have an administrative retreat later this week and, well, I guess tomorrow and the rest of this week. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to know the administrators better and hearing their building plans.
Any other items from the board?
Yeah, I just have one. Was it last week? A couple weeks ago, I serve on the Iowa Association of School Boards Legislative Resolutions Committee. I was just appointed to that this spring. We as a board need to make our selections for our top priorities for the coming legislative season. I know it's like we just got done with one, but that's what I attended last week. A full day of discussions regarding that, a wrap-up of the last session and looking forward to the next. So I'm going to talk to others and give you some information that I received at that meeting, and then we can, as a board, vote on that. Hopefully, at least, it doesn't have to be done at our next meeting. The meeting after that actually would be okay too. But start thinking about some of those issues, and of course, obviously, SAVE is going to be at the top of the list for all of us, but there's some other issues that we might want to talk about.
I haven't seen anything come through from ISB yet. They usually send us a packet.
You didn't see it?
I haven't seen it come through to us. It
Really?
usually comes to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they said they sent it, so I will chat with them. Thanks.
Any other things?
I would like to welcome Jenny. Thank you for being here. I'm glad you chose us, and it's gonna work. I know it. I can see it. I'm excited for our future. I'm excited for our students, our teachers, that we have some in the house. Thank you. I'm very happy for you to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Some of the things Jenny and I have been meeting a lot in 2 weeks, maybe, since you've been here. So, but we will be going to the Fiscal Management Conference next Wednesday by IASB. I think Director Rosser is also going. And I know she's making her rounds with different people within the community, and we'll be meeting with the city. So we're just getting rolling on our things.
Definitely.
So
great meetings.
Yep, and then I will also, the board, Chris put together a full packet for you on our adopted operating budget. We had talked about this a little bit at our last, at one of our work sessions we had recently, but she put this together for you because there were some questions about portions of the budget, and so she's put it all together for you for your easy reading by the pool this summer. So you can thank Chris for that. So thank you, Chris, very much for putting that together. We appreciate it. Any items from the staff?
So when you ask for items from the staff, this is my opportunity to speak.
Anything that you want us to be aware of?
I think a few things just to keep in mind. I've worked a little bit with Dan the data man, and so we are going to be changing the assessment systems, and so that may look a little different in how we approach our school improvement plans with the buildings this year. So that being said, we'll talk more about that with the admin team tomorrow and the day after, and then the instructional coaches will join us as well on the last day. So that was one of the things that I think just for the board to be aware of. It might look a little different for a year, but we'll have some good discussions around it and what the alignment looks like. And then in addition to that, Chris and I met today briefly just on looking at enrollment numbers. And we have a couple areas where kindergarten are full, and so we'll be addressing that as well.
Great. Yeah. And then the board planning calendar. So we sat down and went through this, but clearly we're still trying to get figured out how we do this, right?
I know, right.
So the board planning calendar is there, and I don't know if there's anything that we need to update in terms of what we will be meeting. We are having 2 meetings in July, so our next meeting will be July 23rd? Yes, I believe is the date. So we will be meeting again at that time. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Rosser. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you.